essentially, they pass that price on to consumers. So, we have this guy coming in who said that he's not going to put out jobs numbers. I don't think it's crazy to think that they will F with inflation numbers.
I totally agree. And the same people who sort of said, okay, a little understandably, well, this guy can't possibly get appointed, are now saying, well, there are 1,000 economists, there are 200 or something, and you can't just, they're going to produce a real number, and you can't just overrule them. I mean, it would be like two would quit, and there'd be bad press for a day or two. And I feel like that's one of those things that everyone's going to say until he does it in, at a time when it's politically important, in September of 2026 or something like that. And, of course, they'll go ahead and do it, and Trump will say that it was right to do it, and there'll be a day of bad press, and then it will be done. And so people are right to be alarmed about this. And, again, I just come back to this. Kennedy, well, he wasn't going to do the things that, he'd been irresponsible when he was just a private citizen. But as cabinet secretary, he wasn't going to actually stop life-saving vaccines. I mean, come on, It's like, so I think the degree to which we just underrate the momentum of the authoritarianism and the real deep-down extremism, and that does get a little back to the Bismarck and so forth, January 6th. We are not putting in, as I say, heritage right-wing ideologues at this point. Steve Moore, someone we knew in the old day who's gone totally Trumpy, and Kudlow, those types, right? I mean, we're way beyond that. The extremism is really real, I guess is what I'm struck by looking at this guy, fanaticism, really, right? And which means that the normal incentives, well, he can't do that, but it would be embarrassing for him, among other economists. Couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less. All right, Bill Kristol, I appreciate the extra time with you this week. I'll keep you on the bat phone if there's more World War II Nazi paraphernalia in the administration. Everybody else subscribe to the feed. I've got a guest coming up today on today's podcast. We're doing a lot of the Russia stuff, and we've got a couple more fun things for you too. So stick around. See you soon. Challenging to get seafood, if you go to your local grocery store,
Markets are crashing as DC is rising up against the authoritarian takeover of our city. And I also have Stephen Chung, who is a White House director and looks exactly what it would look like when the evil is seeping out of your skin. Stephen Chung responding to all of this. Here is the market crashing. I'm just going to play a little bit.
Breaking news right now, and a spike in the producer price level of inflation. Take a look. Markets are selling off.
So markets are crashing because Donald Trump's tariffs have caused inflation, and the markets are freaking out because people are going to have less money to go and spend on things. And so here is what the Lincoln Project did to it, and I hope I don't get copyright stricken for this. How do you say that? Copyright striked?
Breaking news right now, and a spike in the producer price level of inflation. Take a look. Markets are selling off here because the July PPI came in up 0.9%. Worse than the estimated up 0.2%. This is the headline number. It was expected up 0.2, came up 0.9%. Year over year, it is up 3.3% versus an estimate of up 2.5%. Now, when you look at core, it's also troubling because in the core PPI, it was up 0.9% versus an estimate of 0.2%. Year over year, the core up 3.7%, also higher than the estimated expectation, which was up 2.9%. These numbers have caused markets to drop. The Dow Industrial is down 105, the Nasdaq down 71, and the S&P 500 lower by 19. We want to take a look at producer prices with the Transportation Secretary. Sean Duffy will be here to talk about other things like the modernization of the FAA, as well as the investment in space. We're going to start off getting into...
Anyways, you get the idea. It's not good, and it's something what we all predicted. So Donald Trump is going to pretend like this isn't happening. He's going to say this is what are they gonna say? It's fake stocks. I mean, it is what it is.
Excuse me. Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one.
But Donald Trump is not going to pretend like this is real. And we're all suffering because of Donald Trump's stupid decisions around tariffs, who MAGA thinks is actually a great idea, and it's not. Real quick while you're watching this video, if you can like this video and leave a comment of about 7 words or more, YouTube is downranking these videos. If you look at the page, there's not as many views as there used to be. I don't know what's going on. Maybe Melania Trump sent an email. But regardless, there is a way that you can boost it is by hitting like and leaving a comment, and it would help so much get this in front of more people. Thank you. Now, we're also suffering here in D.C. because Donald Trump has militarized the streets, and D.C. is actually rising up. I got a few clips for you here, one of which is, this is actually a member, we found out now, this is a member of the DOJ, a DOJ employee who was subsequently fired for throwing a sandwich at the police. I want to normalize throwing sandwiches at police officers who are breaking their oath to the Constitution. I think we should normalize that. No, I don't think you should actually do it, but I don't mind that it happens. And DC also is experiencing. Look at this. Look at this. So if you don't know, this is 14th Street, which is, I guess, I don't know if it's technically downtown, but it's certainly lower part of DC. And police here have actually created fencing and like stop zones where they can stop cars and investigate them with no due process. And here is, as you can see, residents here not very pleased about it and creating a scene, which I'm very, very happy about. We also have some footage here of a man telling police officers that they can disobey unlawful orders, which is what these are.
These are your homeless citizens. These are homeless people. You guys are fucking cool. Don't let them do this to me. It's abuse to you, and now you are gonna pay fuck. And you're fucking up. You have time today to make like all your services. But you now do not do this. You have the obligation to refuse unlawful orders. Okay?
I think we should normalize that, which is not illegal at all and it doesn't involve any sort of physical contact, is shaming these people. Because what they're doing is wrong. And the military exists to protect us from foreign enemies. We are not the enemy. Homeless people are not the enemy in this country. Using the military against its own citizens is despicable, quite frankly. And I'm glad that man spoke up. We need more people to do it. Stephen Chung is upset that Gavin Newsom actually is actually winning the media war right now, and he has this, I mean, I don't have to read all this, but he's obviously trying to parody Donald Trump and the insane things that he tweets each day in all caps, which we have talked about here. And he said here, could be the worst day of your life, which, I mean, how soft are these people? Because they're saying that he threatened Donald Trump's life. They're calling it an assassination attempt. Are you kidding me? After an assassination attempt on POTUS over just a year ago, Gavin Newsom, in an unhinged post, appears to be calling for something even worse. What's worse than assassination? What a vile piece of shit. Go fuck yourself, he says. Anyways, obviously this is getting to them, and I'm glad he's doing it. Someone needs to be doing it, and I'm glad someone is, and thank you to Gavin Newsom for actually speaking up. Now, I want to end with this. I feel like we have forgotten how far we have fallen in this country. I came across this, and I hope you watch it, because my hope is that we can get back to this. I can't believe I'm sharing a George Bush clip, but the thing that I want to inspire you is that it used to be that we had disagreements, but we were all under the umbrella of being an American. We all had kind of like a shared identity. It wasn't Republican or Democrat as much as it was American, and we had disagreements about policies and taxes, but we all kind of knew that whoever won the election was the winner, and we'd give the opportunity to lead. And here's George Bush. I can't believe it. Here's George Bush showing dignity and grace. And I'll leave you with that. And if you please would like this video and subscribe, I'd love it so much. And I'll see you next time.
Good morning. Last night, I had a warm conversation with President-elect Barack Obama. I congratulated him and Senator Biden on their impressive victory. I told the President-elect he can count on complete cooperation from my administration as he makes the transition to the White House. I also spoke to Senator John McCain. I congratulated him on a determined campaign that he and Governor Palin ran. The American people will always be grateful for the lifetime of service John McCain has devoted to this nation. And I know he'll continue to make tremendous contributions to our country. No matter how they cast their ballots, all Americans can be proud of the history that was made yesterday. Across the country, citizens voted in large numbers. They showed a watching world the vitality of America's democracy and the strides we have made toward a more perfect union. It shows a president whose journey represents a triumph of the American story, a testament to hard work, optimism, and faith in the enduring promise of our nation. Many of our citizens thought they would never live to see that day. This moment is especially uplifting for a generation of Americans who witnessed the struggle for civil rights with their own eyes. 4 decades later, see a dream fulfilled.
Washington last night, protesters yelling at federal officers at a checkpoint in a popular nightlife destination in the district. According to a account of the Washington Post, a number of people were detained, the woman handcuffed while the crowd booed and yelled at officers to, quote, read the Constitution. Just a couple blocks away, a man was arrested after first shouting obscenities at officers and then throwing a sandwich at one. The alleged assailant, a man named Sean Charles Dunn, was a Justice Department employee. He's now been fired, and he's also been charged with a felony, something former Fox News anchor and now U.S. Attorney for the district, Janine Pirro, announced on social media.
He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
The attorney for the district president also weighed in not on the sandwich, but on the larger question of taking federal law enforcement officers away from their regular jobs and putting them on the streets.
Are you concerned at all that some federal officers that are helping D.C. police might be away from other high priorities?
Like what? Terrorism. Really? Terrorism? They'll stop terrorism as part of what they're doing right now. You know, in Washington, D.C., they have thousands of police and a lot of police, but the police weren't allowed to do their job. We had a lot of great ones. Then you have some that weren't so good, to be honest, but they weren't allowed to do their job. But now they are allowed to do their job.
Joining us now is former D.C. Police Chief Charles Ramsey, who's now CNN senior law enforcement analyst. Do you see this increase in National Guard troops as helpful, as beneficial? Concerns? What do you think is working?
You know, when this was first announced, of course, I was very skeptical, and I'm still a little skeptical that the main motivation is to make D.C. a safer place. But having said that, the additional personnel, particularly the federal law enforcement, it can be used to actually make a difference in many of these neighborhoods. Now, I'm not a big fan of the National Guard being used in that capacity. However, right now they're in a support role, and I'm okay with that. But it has to be done in coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department, with the city, and they've got to target specific areas of the city that are still very challenged in terms of crime. You can never drive crime down low enough. You have to keep pushing and pushing, because for the people who live in these challenged areas, we can talk about crime stats being down all we want. As far as they're concerned, there's been no difference. So it's the perception of crime as well as the reality that we have to deal with.
Well, let's talk about the reality, because the crime stats, which have been cited by a number of officials, are now being questioned with the police union in D.C. The president was asked about recent crime statistics in the Oval Office today, and he refers to that. I just want to play part of the answer.
So we will have crime under control very shortly in D.C., but they're record numbers, and sadly, what I guess the mayor did, but whoever it was, they asked the numbers to be fudged so that it would show less crime. The fact is, it's worse than it's ever been. They gave us phony crime stats, just like they gave other stats in the financial world, phony crime stats. And Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will be at its best point. You can have a very safe, you can have a crime-free city. I mean, I say that. It's not virtually a crime-free city.
I mean, does police leadership cook the books? It happens in Vietnam War in the military with the body count. It's happened, it happens in some places.
You know, when I was a young cop in Chicago back in the 1970s, there was a huge scandal around cooking rules changing crime stats. I'm not aware of anything like that going on in D.C. In fact, the union president who said that, I don't believe he's produced a bit of evidence to show that in fact is the case. I mean, if crime is down, crime is down. But again, it doesn't get around the fact that you can always drive it down further. And that's really what you need to be able to do. The biggest problem I have with this, because you can have this large surge of personnel in the district, you'll suppress crime for a period of time. But what's the plan? What's the long-term strategy for being able to maintain it, to keep it quiet, to keep it peaceful, and safe? I haven't heard anybody talk about that at all, and that's what they need to be thinking about. This many people cannot stay in the district for very long. They just can't. You've got to be able to move on to do your job, do your other job, rather.
What's going on here in Washington, D.C. I mean, we've seen there were National Guard patrols in Georgetown. There was a checkpoint set up in a popular nightlife district I used to live around the corner from 14th and W.
Unfucking believable.
We have not seen the presence be sort of all across the city from what we can tell, but rather these isolated places. What do you think the ultimate upshot of all of this is, this display from the president?
That remains to be seen, and whether there's any, Washington's still too high. American cities coming down, and frankly, one homicide is one homicide too much. So, we'll see if there's actually any real effect. It's not really clear what they're doing, but the precedent of declaring emergencies and saying, Washington is a hellscape, and therefore I am going to send military. And we saw it in other places. We saw it in L.A., where Marines sat around for several weeks, not doing a heck of a lot, but the show of
Psycho. Psycho. Psycho.
You see, folks showing up at political rallies, and there's a reason why we keep the military separate from domestic activities. So, there's a concern about that, but I don't know I'm hoping. Look, I hope the upshot is somehow this improves things. But I have a question as to whether that's the fundamental objective.
It won't, and that's not the intent. I mean, look, let's be extremely honest about it. If you look in cities like Little Rock, Arkansas, if you look in cities like Atlanta, Georgia, if you look in cities like Birmingham, Alabama, where you have mayors such as Frank Scott, you have mayors such as Randall Woodford.